Hello everybody, I'm Steph at Destination Exploration and welcome to another one of our Technology Thursday videos for our At Home with DE series. Today we're going to be talking about 3D printing and how we can do 3D modeling online through different types of software. TinkerCAD is a free online software from Autodesk, and Autodesk is something that's used by industry professionals to basically prototype what their designs are going to look like. So we can model it in a 3D sense online, which allows us to be really accurate in what we're designing to see if it'll fit when we print it and bring it into the real world for its intended use. All right, so we're going to jump on over to TinkerCAD. You're going to do tinkercad.com. You can Google TinkerCAD and it's going to bring you to this site here. If you don't have an account, that's totally fine. What you can do is you can join now, but you're also able to sign in if you have a Google account. So if you have Gmail or anything linked to the Gmail service, the Google services, you can do that. We do have an account already set up, so we're just going to log in here. Very simple to do. And you'll jump into the main page here. We can see all the designs some of our past participants have done. All right, but what we're going to do just right now is you're going to jump in and press Create New Design. Here we go. So we've started off and we've got this really weird and funky name. We're going to change the name just by clicking it. What we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to change the name to be Keychain, and it's going to say Steph. So the first thing, let's take a look at what our screen looks like here. We've got our title up here, kind of our cut, copy, paste, undo. Really useful things when we're going. On the right hand side here we do have these basic shapes. So we can go in and we can see all these different shapes that TinkerCAD has for us. We're just going to stick with basic shapes because all drawing is really just shapes. A house is just a square and a triangle, and that's all 3D modeling is. It's just taking and manipulating shapes to create something cool. So what we're going to do is we can actually take one of these shapes to show off. And so if I grab the box, all I have to do is click and bring it over with me, okay? I can click and drag, that totally works as well, but you do just have to click once and then click again to drop it down. So I've got this cube. We can use our scroll on our mouse just to zoom in and out, okay? We got this square here, this cube looks great. Over here on the left-hand side, we do have this box now that we're able to click, and it changes the perspective and the viewpoint that we're looking at my cube, all right? Now, I can go, and if I get myself turned around and I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going? All I have to do is click the home button and it brings me right back here. So we'll zoom in. If you do have a mouse with a click wheel on it, all you have to do is click the click wheel down as a mouse button and click and hold, and it will move around here, okay? Fortunately, with a laptop, it doesn't work because it doesn't have that third button on their mouse, okay? So what we've got is we've got it here. We've got a nice shape. If we click on the shape, we can actually move it around. We can manipulate it to be a different shape. It can be a rectangle, it can be a thin line, okay? But you can see right now that I can see these dotted lines, and that's my rectangle, and that's what I'm manipulating. It's still saying the same height. So we'll manipulate it so that it becomes a rectangle. We're gonna change the perspective so that we can see it a little better, move it around, zoom it in. Now I've got a really, really tall rectangle. I can make it smaller by clicking the little white dot at the top, and I can drag it up and down, okay? The other thing with TinkerCAD, and when we get into high-end 3D modeling, it all becomes really precise. So what we can actually do is we can change the dimension just by entering a value. So instead of 15 units, maybe I just want it 10. Or if I want a box that's not 11, we want to make sure that it's 10 and 30, just to make it a little bit more accurate, okay? So I've got a really great stick of butter. I can bring it up here and I can actually change the shape or change the values. I can make it look more, a little bit more look like butter. There we go. Okay, so I do have my great stick of butter. We're gonna keep it like that. That's just to show you how to manipulate shapes for now, okay? So we don't need our butter because we're making a keychain. Over here in our basic shapes, we actually have something called text, which is a lot easier than making an S out of different circles. So we can click and bring that over here. We do have different fonts that we can choose. I'm going to choose the Sans Mono. It's really straight lines. There's nothing kind of fancy on the ends there. Now, unfortunately, I don't want a keychain that says text, so I am going to write my name, Steph, here. Now, when I write this, all the letters, it may be grouped as one, but none of the letters are touching. When we 3D print, we want to make sure that all of our design always has some point of contact with the next object. That way it's not just separate pieces all flying around, okay? So what we're gonna do is with this, I don't actually want to write the full name. I'm going to write each one of my letters in my name as one letter at a time. Okay, we're gonna bring this back. Now once I click in here, I have other options as well. The bevel actually changes how thick that letter is gonna be. So I do want it like that. I've made some cool adjustments, and the adjustments that I want. Okay, we can see what my S looks like. It's a little high, so let's make that maybe just 5. Okay, so instead of having to do all of those adjustments every single time, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy and paste. So I can use my keyboard with Command or Control C and then Control or Command V. I can also just use the buttons up at the top here. So I'm just gonna copy and paste, and every time I make a new one, I'm gonna change it to the letter I want. Great. Sometimes if you delete, you can also just do an undo or Command Z or Control Z. Okay, I'm gonna copy more of these. And H. All right. Looks like a very large H. There we go. All right, so now we've got it as an H. Amazing. We can move these around. They are all different objects. That's great. What we're going to do is we're actually going to change the color of the shape. The color that we have online won't translate to the 3D printer because a 3D printer will use one color of filament for the entire print. So it will always be just one color. So we can change and manipulate the colors on here just as we're going through, just to make it a little easier to distinguish them as we're building our keychain. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we've got them all here. Now, there's another cool tool called the Align tool, and it's gonna be your best friend. It's gonna be really handy when we're making our name tag here. So right up at the top, we have this, and this is our Align tool. Again, if you hover over things, they will tell you the description of the button and what it kind of does. So the Align tool comes up here. We've got all of our shapes selected. So you can either click, hold down Shift, and continue to click the remainder of the objects, or you can click and drag so that all of the objects are highlighted. And we've got 5 shapes there. My name has 5 shapes. That's what we want. All right, so we're gonna press Align. What we're gonna do is you can align them by different reference points. So because I do have a P and an H in my name, and they sit on different levels of the line, we're gonna line them up to the bottom like you normally would, and I'm just gonna manually move my P down, okay? I'm gonna use the lines on the workspace as kind of a reference there. So what we're going to do is they're still a little far apart. We want to make sure that they're close together. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here. I can use the arrow keys, or I can click and drag. When we use the arrow keys, we're actually just bumping, which means that the objects aren't going to go up or down or move in a way that we don't want them to. So we do want to make sure that they are sticking together. We do have some overlap because, again, when we're 3D printing, we want it all to come out as one. Okay, I can even move it so it's a little bit more funky looking as a name tag. Okay, kind of on an angle there. Everything looks great. Everything's one level. So what we can do is, to see what it would look like as one color, we can just group them all into one shape. So if I select them all again, I've got 5 shapes up here. Now the other button up here is group. When we group it, it's going to create it and it's going to turn it into one shape so that we can see kind of what a preview is going to be like when it's 3D printed. To me, you can't really tell what the letters are and how close they are to each other. So what we're going to do is we're just going to ungroup that again so that we can work with the different shapes. And let's play with the heights. So we made them originally 5 units high, but what if we take the T and we make it a little taller? So instead of 5, let's say 7. And what about the P as well? We can change that. So again, we can click and move it like this, or we can just hit 7. Okay, so now I've got this really funky name. And see what it looks like. It's a little bit more interesting to look at. And again, let's make it all one color and one shape here. Looks a little bit easier to distinguish, right? Perfect. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna work on the key ring. Instead of having to worry about moving this or changing things around, I'm gonna lock the shape so that it doesn't move. When I lock it, it's still gonna be there, but I can't actually move it around. I can't manipulate it in any way. And that's really handy when we're doing other things. So I'm gonna come over here, we're gonna give us a different view. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make that circular ring now. We need to go back over to our basic shapes. We're gonna choose one of these. We could have chosen a tube or a torus. Okay, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a custom shape, which means that we're gonna need 2 different shapes to help us create one new one. So we're gonna grab the cylinder, we're gonna bring it over here. It's huge. We don't want that, okay? We can see that it's 20 by 20 by 20, okay? So it's gonna look massive. So what we wanna do is we wanna make it a little bit more to scale. So we're gonna turn that into 5 and a circle. So our diameter of our circle is gonna be 5, okay? Our height, again, is really, really tall. We're just gonna jump over to our S, and we know that our S was 5 units high. So we're just gonna go in here and make it 5 so that it lines up. Now, very hard to put a key ring through a solid object. So what we're gonna need to do is kind of basically stamp a hole out of it. So we're gonna use the cylinder tool, except this time we're gonna use the hole. When we click our shape, we can see that it's solid. And then when we get these banded lines, we get a hole, and that's what we're gonna use, okay? We're gonna grab our hole cylinder, bring it over here. Again, it's now a hole. We're gonna make it the same size so it's a little easier to see. Great. Again, it's super tall. We just want it. Let's make it 7 just so that we can see. So if I put it in here, I'm actually gonna lose that orange shape, which we don't wanna do. So we're gonna make it a little smaller. So this solid outside hole is gonna have a diameter of 5. Let's say that we want the hole inside of it to be a diameter of 2.5, so half the size. So we're just gonna change those values there. So now I have 2 different size cylinders. One's a hole and one's a solid shape. What we wanna do is we're gonna use that align tool again to make sure that they're both right inside of each other so that they're lined up. So we're gonna press both the middle ones here so that it's lined up. We can look at the bottom. Everything looks great. Now, when we grouped all these solid shapes together, it created this one big shape. When we group a solid and a hole together, it actually cuts the hole out of that solid shape. So again, we're gonna select both shapes, either by clicking and selecting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up and we're gonna group these. When I group them, I get this hole. So now it's just one shape, but our shape does have a hole in it, which is what we want. So we're gonna zoom back out. We're gonna drag it over to our shape up here. Make sure that it does overlap. That's important, right? Because we do want our shape to print nicely. Perfect. Now, we're gonna unlock this shape so that we can work at it again. We're gonna select our 2 things here because again, let's see what it all looks like as one color. Looks amazing. Pretty cool name tag, if I do say so myself. And that's it. Now we've made our name tag. It's on a 3D print. It's a 3D model. Everything looks great. Now it can stay on the internet and you can show everybody. But what we're gonna do here at Destination Exploration while we're at home, I do have a 3D printer with me. So if you make something really cool, you can send it over to us either through social media or through our email, which you can find on the website, which is destination.explore without the E at uleth.ca. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll actually print them, and then when we're back at the university, we're back in our space, you can come by and pick them up. Okay, so we're pretty excited about that. I need some new decorations for the house, but all you gotta do is send over your design and we'll print them for you and we'll show you how they look. Okay, in order to do that, we've got to get them off the internet and into a file that I can use. So when we're back in here, we've finished everything up, we've changed the name, so it's a different file. We've got it all here. So say I have these different shapes. I've got all the different shapes going on. Everything looks great to me, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna export it so that I can use it as a 3D printed file. So we're gonna go up to the right-hand corner. We're gonna press export. We wanna make sure that everything in the design is clicked. This makes sure that everything that you've designed gets translated into the new file, okay? If you have a 3D printer at home and want to give it a try, you can send it to these types of printers, okay? But most of the 3D printers will work with a .stl file so that we can slice it and have it work for that certain printer brand. So we're going to download as an STL. It's just going to download to your folder your downloads file folder right here, so you can click on that and open it up. So now it's in my download folder here. On a Mac, there's this really cool function that allows you to preview files. So if you click on your file here and press the space bar, it actually comes up. And we can see what it looks like here. Everything looks good, just the way I want it to. There's no holes or gaps or anything, which is great. So that's what we want there. And that's what I'll then take and bring it into the program we call Slicer. So the 3D printers that Destination Exploration has are Prusa printers. So it jumps into the program that allows us to basically turn it into a language that the 3D printer will use. So a 3D printer basically takes plastic and melts it down and slowly builds up the design layer by layer. We haven't done anything with the layer yet. So what we have to do is this program here is going to do that for us so that we don't have to think about all that crazy hard work. So we've got it in here, we can rotate it around. It looks like the sheet bed or the bottom of our 3D printer, so we can relatively see the size. Looks like a good size to me. So we're gonna do this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna slice it into layers. So I've got all my settings set up here. I'm gonna slice it, and it changes it into this view. So a 3D printer, like I said, builds up a design from the bottom to the top, okay, because it's slowly laying down different layers. So it's like if while you build a Lego house, you don't start with the roof and build down, you're gonna start from the bottom and build up, okay? So we can see the different layers as it builds, as it grows, and then it goes to our final design, just like this. Now, with a 3D printer, it's really important that we're aware while we're building how it's going to print. So it does print from the bottom up, and we wanna make sure that there's no overhangs or things like that, things that might be printing into thin air. So as an example, if I were to take this as the same design, it works, everything's great, but if I were to print it so that it was standing on its feet like this, so that as the printer grew, it started from the bottom to the top, okay? When I slice this now and give it a preview, again, it looks great, but if we start from the bottom, only the two pieces of the H will start to grow. And as we grow, then when we get to this point where the letter P is starting to be printed, we can actually see that it's not printing on the ground. It's printing into thin air. So it will lay this down and it's actually gonna fall and it won't print properly. Okay, same thing as the new letters come up. They're printing basically on thin air, which isn't gonna work. So these blue pieces are telling us that there's an overhang and then it won't print. It'll fail and then it won't be great. What we wanna do is, even though it looks fine in the end, we do wanna make sure that our starting print is aligned correctly. All right, so we'll bring it back here, we'll slice it so that we can see our print, and then it's off to the printer. So there you have it. I'll show, this is what my design, or my original design is doing. It's growing, I made it in green. Here's what the finished product looks like. Everything looks great so far. It's gonna work on my keychain. All right, so thanks again for joining us. I'm Steph for Destination Exploration for our At Home with DE tutorial on how to use TinkerCAD and 3D printing. When you create your designs, send them over to us and we'll see what we can do to have them printed so that they're ready for you to pick up when we're back in our space. Thanks, and until next time, make sure you check out our past video on microbits and any of our other blog posts online on our website. And until next time, we'll see you later.